In this video, we will get an understanding of how to use inline functions in Mobius. Previously, we looked at how to call a function. In your code, you call a function by specifying the name and a list of arguments. The arguments that you specify can be the actual values. They can be names of variables defined in the preceding lines of code, or they can be more complex expressions. In this example, the value of the second argument is defined by some more complex type of expression. This expression can also consist of another function call. In this example, the value of the second argument is now defined by another function call. Let's look at a more complete example. Here is some code that creates a list of two numbers, and then adds another to the end of the list. Note that the gray lines of code that start with a double / are code comments. The code includes two function calls. Instead of writing these function calls on separate lines, one can nest one inside another. This reduces the number of lines of code that are required. And it also means that we have one less variable. In this case, the variable called z is no longer required. When nesting function, it is easy to overdo it. You should make sure that your code remains easy to understand. You have already been using functions in your code. In Mobius, there are three types of functions. They are referred to as primary functions, inline functions, and user functions. Primary functions are those that are accessible on the side menu in the editor pane. They include all the 3D modeling functions. Inline functions are smaller functions that can be embedded directly into your expressions. They are accessible from the expressions pop-up dialog box. Finally, user functions are custom functions defined by the U. There are two types, global user functions and local user functions. For now, we will be focusing on inline functions. Let's do a quick recap on primary functions. A primary function always results in a new line of code being inserted into the procedure. So you cannot nest primary functions inside one another. Primary functions include all the 3D modeling functions. And they also include some other functions for working with data structures. Primary functions may or may not return a value. If a primary function returns a value, the line of code will include a variable assignment. If a primary function does not return a value, the line of code will have no variable assignment. Also, note that if no value is returned, the function also have no print toggle button. Inline functions are inserted into an input box in an existing line of code. Note that the inline functions always return a value. So the value in the input box will be whatever is returned by the function. In this example, an inline function has been inserted into the input box for a function. This is an example of a nested function call. The inline function call is nested inside the function call. If you want to put an inline function into a separate line of code, then that is still possible. You can create a variable, and then insert the inline function call into the second input box. This also allows you to print the value returned by the inline function. To insert the inline function, you can either simply type it into the input box, or you can use the expressions dialog box. The expressions dialog box has a list of all inline functions. When you click the inline function name, the text for the function call will be inserted. Initially, it may be easier to use the expression dialog box. As you become familiar with the inline functions, you may find it faster to simply type the function name. There are many inline functions to perform all sorts of small operations. Requiring a separate line of code for each of these small operations would be excessive. It would make the procedures very long, and would make the code more difficult to understand and maintain. Inline functions are therefore provided as a solution. Let's have a brief look at some examples of inline functions. The len function returns the number of items in the list, also known as the length of the list. Or, when used with a string, it returns the length of a string. The range function generates a list of numbers from start to end. If the step size not specified, then the step size will default to 1. The rand function generates a pseudorandom decimal number between the minimum and maximum values. The randInt function does the same, but returns an integer rather than a decimal. The radToDeg function converts radians to degrees. Given an angle in radians, it will return the same angle in degrees. The degToRad function does the opposite. It converts degrees to radians. Note that all the modeling functions require angles to be specified in radians. Mobius has a number of constants that can be used in expressions. An example is pi, which is equal to 180 degrees in radians. Another set of constants are the planes orthogonal to the axes. In this example, a rectangle is created on the xy plane, at the origin.